Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Van Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Huh? So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
Hey, we want to shout out to our sponsors, Daytona Beach Comic Con. If you are a fan of comic books, if you're a fan of comic book conventions, and if you like meeting comic book creators and getting comics and comic-related stuff, then you need to make your plans to attend Daytona Beach Comic Con. This year's show is September 7th and 8th. Silverline will be there, so you should make your plans to be there too. We'll see you there. If you like comics and find yourself in the Orlando, Florida area, doesn't everyone come to Orlando at some point in time to see the House of Mouse? But when you're here, you need to make it a point to visit Coliseum of Comics, especially the one on East Colonial Drive. They carry Silverline Comics, even a limited edition Coliseum of Comics version of our comics. So, when you go, be sure to ask for Silverline Comics and tell them we sent you. OCD stands for Orlando Collector Deviants. OCD, Steve and Trish, they're a family of geeks who promote geek things, particularly those around the Orlando, Florida area. They're big supporters of Silverline, and we think you should be supporters of theirs too. Go give them some love. If you are an independent comic book maker and you need to get your independent comics made, you need to look no further than Kablam Digital Printing. They print our books, and they do a bang-up job. They're not only trusted by Silverline, but many, many independent comic book makers. Head on over to kablam.com and see for yourself just how easy it is to have your comic printed by them. And tell them Silverline sent you.
Hi, this is Tim TK, host of That Silverline Show on Tuesday. Join us at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Tuesday night as we discuss pop culture and the joys of making comics.
Hi, I'm Barb Kilber, co-host of Silverline's Wednesday Wham. Join us each Wednesday night as we discuss comics, literature, movies, and anything else that may catch our attention.
I'm Roland Mann, and I host Silverline's Silver Sunday. Join me every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern as we make mine Silverline.
And here we are, creating beyond politics, beyond calculation, and beyond the big two. Welcome, Silverliners, to the wonderful world of Wednesday Wham. Hey, fellas, how you doing?
Hello, Dean.
Howdy, gentlemen.
Hey, Rob, we missed you over in Daytona. This is my first show post-Daytona. I first want to thank my illustrious co-host, Scott Wakefield, for stepping in last week. I was on a brief vacation in South Florida, which was excellent.
But what was the real reason? It wasn't just a vacation.
Just a vacation.
It was an anniversary trip with my wonderful wife.
That's right.
Well,
there you
go.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking to Mr. Dean, keeping it hot after 4 years.
Got to do what we can do.
With special guest star Mr. Scott, still rocking at Wakefield, and Mr. Rob, you won't catch me on the wrong side of Reno.
Excellent.
You got it.
Wow.
You got it.
Good impression. Good impression. We missed you, Rob, at the show. Everyone sent their regards. We also want to give a shout out to our hosts, Roland Mann and BJ Mann, who were gracious hosts and took us to dinner. We had a blast. And everybody who came to the show and said hello, we appreciate you, and we look forward to seeing you next year. Just had to do a little cleanup before setting the table here. Tonight, we're going to talk about superheroes with no superpowers. Are they still to be called superheroes?
Are they super?
Street cred as street fighters? Or are they simply just vigilantes? We're going to dig deep and talk about some of that. We're missing one of our core Wednesday Wham crew, our compatriot, Barbara J. Kelberg, the Empress of the Inks herself, is suffering from dental surgery, a little bit of crown stuff going on, so we wish her a speedy recovery. Let's see here. I want to welcome folks who may be watching us for the first time. Get ready, you're going to have a blast. I am joined tonight. I'm Dean Zachary. I'm an illustrator, and you may have seen my work in Malibu Comics back in the day. I host the show. I am sometimes co-hosted and sometimes substituted by Mr. Scott Wakefield, one of the Wizards of Wordplay, and his associate, and who I like to call Rory Boyle, but also sometimes a character from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Figure out who that is, Yukon Cornelius. And Rob Davis, penciler and paragon of pencils, is what he is known as. Now,
Oh,
that we've got all our
ponytails.
intros done. Let's dive into this. I think we've earned the right to dive right in with two of the biggest, most famous characters from the big two who don't have superpowers. I'm going to go with Batman for DC and Iron Man for Marvel. Let's start with Scott. What's your take on these guys? Are they still to be called superheroes? Do they deserve them?
Oh my. Okay, let's back up, Dean. Define superpowers. No, wait, let's back up before that.
Okay.
No, I mean,
Wow.
it's very. Let's back it up, Dean. Okay, let's back this up. How do we define? How do we now? I would say very simply, we have to define superpowers as those beyond normal human capacity. So yes, that's
Okay.
Is that our definition really? I mean, because in the world we live in, our normal world that we're all trying to escape into our world of the mind and stories, you only excel when you exceed the average, right? When you're really good at something like a sport,
Extraordinary.
right? If you're extraordinary, but you can't. You only go so far that the human body can allow. So, that would be my definition of superpowers. So I would, but people like Iron Man or Hawkeye or the Brainiacs, I don't know. I would be reluctant to call them superheroes, but heroes. But there's not at them apart because they are special. they're extraordinary heroes, and that's lame. So yeah, they do super stuff.
What makes them better than the average person?
Yeah, I was going to ask the same thing.
Yeah, what elevates their status to have comic books written and illustrated about them?
I think so. If we're talking really good storytelling, really good characters, it's their character, it's their grit. So with early Batman, we didn't know much about him. We just knew he could fight crime, and that was really cool. And that was good enough for quite a while. And he was smart. But then as his character developed, even in early Iron Man, we learned, but actually Iron Man started off with problems, which was good. But as characters developed, it was their character that made them special. Really not their stick-to-itiveness to lift weights and be able to punch things, but taking it to the next level where everyone else would fall apart or give up. Bruce Wayne and Tony Stark, or even they do the Steve Rogers. He does have super soldier serum, so he's become super, but we're led to believe that there's something special about him. It's the combo platter of
stick-to-itiveness.
I can do this all day long.
Right. And so when you add Steve plus super soldier, you get the enhanced Steve. Exactly. You get much better than when they give it to somebody else or try to and it fails. So real superheroes, I think, need an extra element other than just being faster, stronger. There's got to be, because there's lots of people that are faster and stronger. And I think they use that for villains a lot. They're faster and stronger, but they end up being bullies. They lack character. They lack resolve. They choose the easier path. And there's always those bigger lessons about, sure, you're a tough guy, or sure, you're really smart, but you've chosen to do the wrong things with your gifts,
with your talents.
Yes, your talents. And then you, of course, you have the super villains, and then same thing. It's just on that next level. Did I even answer the question? I don't think I did.
I think so. You rambled enough to fill in the blank. No, that's all that matters.
Start over from the top.
I want to move on to Rory. Rory, talk a little bit about Tony Stark and Bruce Wayne. Because they're so famous and they're easy subjects to talk about as they represent archetypes and templates of basically limited to human abilities, and yet they excel and they have fame and renown for that excellence. What do you think are the differences between those two characters, and what does that mean to you?
So they both became very fit. Obviously, the difference there be Batman was trained by, was it Ra's al Ghul and his ninja types and all that. So different schools of physicality.
Mm-hmm.
Both super smart, both
Yep.
rich playboys who can afford
Yep.
any toy or R&D they need. Let's admit it, R&D is the most expensive part of making something new. And no one wants to put money into that. Both have immaculate butlers, whether it be Jarvis or Alfred.
Yeah.
Butlers are
Yeah.
very important.
Very important. You need a team around you. Both had sidekicks for a while at least.
Yes.
On again, off again.
On
Yeah.
again, off again. Yeah. Both are running corporations. I would say their problems differed. Bruce Wayne's being psychological, emotional, and Tony's being physical addiction. And you don't know much else about his family. I'm not too familiar
His
with the
parents
comic
died.
books.
His parents were, both
His
both-
parents were as well.
Yep. Both of them lose
Yeah,
their parents.
and early
Okay.
on, it was the shrapnel moving in on his
Mhm.
heart that was his weakness.
Sure.
That was
Right.
so, but that changed
Interesting.
later on after the character had been around
Okay.
for a while.
So if they're that similar in all respects, you have to look at the inverse. How did each react with it?
Correct.
yeah,
What was the resiliency of both of them?
Mm.
Where Batman would devote himself almost to the point of paranoia. Iron Man sought, alcohol or drugs or something. So they're very similar.
And similar.
Makes it even more difficult.
The way they fight to depend, it just does depend on the storyline sometimes. If we're talking street level, I think Iron Man with his suit, because he can become he's on par with Cap, Thor,
Yeah,
Hulk.
Yeah.
Whereas
Sure.
Batman, he rarely. I mean, there's some instances where
Yeah.
he's really fighting at that super
Right.
level, but he's more the street level. He's punching regular guys in the face and stringing people up and throwing
Sure,
people off
sure.
buildings. Where Iron Man can really, I mean, he can level a whole city.
Yeah.
So that's
So if you,
really their
if you had
difference.
Batman versus Iron Man, both of them are going to try and outthink each other first.
Yeah.
That
They're
is their
both
MO.
they're both smarty pantses.
Yeah.
So
And
And Batman has a
pants.
cape, and I think that's an impediment.
That is an
So
impediment.
he has to think around
That
the
is an
cape.
impediment. I want to say, Calculus says there was that one storyline in the 90s where he's talking about Cap here, where Cap got the serum taken away and sort of just fought the exact same way with the same level of ability. So, yeah, and he's implying that they have addressed the fact that Cap's force of will does bring him into a level of excellence that I would consider superior to the average person.
I'm not
So maybe-
familiar. Did he with that storyline? Did he shrink back down to kind of skinny Steve Rogers, or did he stay
Stay buff.
buff? I mean, not
Yeah,
that matters, but
He basically fought on the level that he does
interesting.
now without. I assume that I'd have to go back and look at it and read it again, but I assume what the writer was trying to say was Cap's more than the serum,
Yeah.
which is often
Yeah.
thrown at him as a sort of mockery, and so he's more than that. Which brings me, I think, what I was getting at with Tony versus Bruce is they're both very, very similar, but they both ultimately have the same power in that it is a force of will.
Mhm.
They both have an extreme focus on what they wish to do and accomplish with limitations based on their individual limitations and flaws. So they're very similar characters. I think
Both
they
are ready to go wrong.
get along quite well.
Yeah.
Because
Let's say Batman's more like detective, while Iron Man's more protector.
yeah, I could see that. Batman, I think if they ever were pitted against one another, I really think that what we would see would be a situation where the
Batman would make an
strategizing.
Iron Man suit, but black.
Yeah.
yeah.
I think he would develop an EMP trap that depowered
Ooh.
Iron Man, and just
Okay.
that would be the end of it, pretty
That would
much.
be
And
good.
be
yeah.
like, okay, Tony, we
Yeah.
can do this
Yeah, he looked
this
for
way,
weaknesses.
but you probably don't want to go there.
But is the Iron Man suit EMP proof? He
Yeah,
would have had to have
could
thought
be.
about that.
Could be, right? Let's see. It's
Couple
after
secret probation.
Cat spent 8-ish issues on drugs, Post City on Ice. Okay, for those of you into the 90s continuity, track that down and let us know what it was called. Calculus, if you can let us know what that story arc was called, that would be a tremendous help. That'd be great. Hey, John's jumping in saying, hey, guys. Hey, John.
Hey,
what's up?
John,
So,
Hey,
Rob,
it's your beard.
what about you? Talk to us about, your views of Tony, Bruce, or whoever else may come to mind as a, relatively normal human being with excellent focus to elevate themselves.
Well, and you can also think about Green Arrow.
Yeah.
At DC.
Yeah.
Probably the original Sandman at DC as well. He just popped into my mind, thankfully, because he was a mask hero as well. I think a lot of this, because the thing between Bruce Wayne and Tony Stark is they're both billionaires.
Yeah.
Millionaires back in the day.
Yeah.
Billionaires. And so, and I think that whole thing comes from the pulps, the pulp magazines back in the day when the Depression was on. To escape your everyday life, they gave the public rich men who wanted to right wrongs, so they put on a mask and went out and fought crime.
Right.
So that's essentially where that comes from. That's where Batman comes from. That's where Tony comes from. Of course, we could also include Daredevil. We didn't think about Daredevil, although his sight.
He has echolocation.
Yeah. So he's got that going for him. But other than that, his fighting is all done with just
human ability.
Human abilities, regular human abilities.
Yeah.
So, but that's where a lot of that comes from, was from the escapist writing of the 20s and 30s. So that kind of developed into what comic book superheroes also became. And then, of course, with Superman coming along and actually getting, true superpowers beyond those of mortal men.
Yeah.
Then, of course, to compete with him, they started building other things. So other characters. But I think the ones that are the most interesting to me are the ones like Tony Stark and Bruce Wayne, who are really more like those original pulp characters in the fact they choose to do what they're doing. After Tony Stark escaped from being in captivity over in the movie, it's in the Middle East, and in the original, it's in China or Vietnam. After he escapes from that, he could just stop. He could just not go further with that. So it's his choice of going further that makes him different. Same thing with Bruce Wayne. After he could have just gone out and found the person who killed his parents, and that would have been the end of it. He'd gotten his revenge and it would be over with.
Sure.
But he's driven to take it that next level, to go beyond just revenge and actually become an avenger, a person who goes out and fights crime generally, rather than just specific to his pain.
Could be a revenger.
A revenger. That's funny.
Well, what's interesting too is that the pulp figures that you're referencing brings to mind another question I want you guys to address, and that is, do you think that the pulp style heroes, those who are limited to their human abilities, but they push themselves to excel in the spirit of a Doc Savage,
right?
Do you think that brings a level of relatable quality that other superheroes like the X-Men or Spider-Man don't have? And second part of the question, do you think that these pulp style characters relate to a different age group than the more super powered characters? Rob, I'll start with you.
That's a good question. That's a very good question, because I think that it might have something generational to do. Because the original characters, Superman, Batman, and those, during the 1950s, they kind of degenerated into just buffoons, more or less,
right,
to entertain kids. And then because of all the things that happened during the 50s to make comic books always for kids rather than what they originally started out as was reading for everyone. Is they kind of devolved, and then readership dropped off So along comes the 60s, Stan Lee with his making characters who have angst, who have, have personal problems, introduces the soap opera aspect of comic books as that many of them have today, plus the X-Men becoming a metaphor for gayness, for anybody, any kind of outsider, any kind of outsider like that who's born the way they are, but in my case, I was kind of a geeky kid, so I kind of read it as here's people were bullying me, and I wasn't very athletic or any of this. But if I were a mutant, I would be able to do these cool things. So I think it's the growth in comics. That's why the superpowered aspects really kind of took over at that point and pushed the storytelling in a little different direction. That's generational. So I don't know. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to say it's interesting how Marvel came along, as you said, when the sort of circus performer talking down to the kids level of the 50s petered out because people were tired of that. Then all of a sudden in the 60s, we get this more blended idea of flawed social commentary included with fantastic superpowers. So, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby are sort of blending these two ideas together. We'll bring it down to earth in terms of some of the content, but then we'll take it to fantasy in terms of their powers. So it was sort of a blending of old ideas together to bring something new. But then again, you still had non-superpower, because again, Iron Man, I guess he came along a little bit later. He was, not superpowered. The Punisher, not superpowered, not really a hero, more of straight up anti-hero, vigilante there. But then over at DC, Batman comes back much darker, still no superpowers. Green Arrow, they're addressing, a lot of social issues of the late 60s, early 70s. Still no superpowers, though, even though Green Arrow teamed up with a very powered individual, Green Lantern, even though it was just a ring. I mean, you got to count that as his superpower. What I'm saying in terms is that it was the blend of heavier social content for a mature readership blended with unbelievable fantasy. So all of a sudden we get both of these worlds mixed together. I was also going to touch on the fact that I feel like when you look at today, when I get asked for commissions at shows and so on, very often I'll find that the younger fans want more powered characters, with few exceptions, of course. But for the most part, they want the Hulk. They want Thor. You know what I mean? They want these big, powerful
beyond belief,
Hulk smash, beyond reality. Whereas you get a little bit older, the teenagers are more looking for Iron Man and Batman, right? It gets a little, as they get older, it gets a little bit more sophisticated, a little more grounded and down-to-earth material. We get a little more realism there. I don't know. What do you guys think? Scott, you've been too quiet over there in the corner. Time for you to wrap this up.
I've got an almost 11-year-old right over there. I'm embarrassing her.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Nora!
Yeah.
What's up?
Trying to sneak around and whisper to me and going,
Say this, say that.
Dad, Iron Man sucks.
She can't hear you guys at all. It's all coming through here. So they're laughing at you, not with you, Nora. Yeah.
Love you.
At your daddy. At your daddy.
Okay. Yeah. Make
If you
yourself
would
look
order-
better by
like,
making us look
corner.
better. I get it.
If you and your siblings MST3K your dad. It's
Yep, they do that all the time. They do that to my life. They do that.
I remember those days.
Yeah.
Oh, my
yeah.
goodness.
I've got my biggest fans and my best critics. They're fantastic. Nora was at Daytona. She had a great time. Quentin Bedwell did a cool drawing of Squirtle for her. So thank you. She loves it. And
Quentin's good. Quentin's so good.
coming up soon. If she look in the covers or on the backs of one of our comics sometime in the future, you might see a review of Bear by Nora. She's read it and she's doing a review right now. Roland said you can have a comic if you promise to write a review. So
That's fantastic.
Nora might have- yeah. Yes, Dean. I think there's always that that child in us that loves seeing Hulk smash Loki into the floor, or punch somebody through a building and all that sort of stuff. That's always awesome, and especially keeping it on the fun level, not the too deep for the movies. When I always think of the first X-Men movie where Wolverine and Sabretooth get into a fight, and that. For me, like I'm sure there was others like Blade and stuff like that came before that, but that was one of the best special effects superhero fights where they just beat the crap out of each other. Because before that, special effects didn't allow that to happen in the movies. Really, it was always implied, or it was never. But like then it just like this is superheroes just beating the tar out of it, and then later blowing through buildings and smashing. And that's awesome stuff. So the movies or any storytelling, I think, has to do a good mix of feeding especially the juvenile male who likes explosions and people getting punched. But the younger audience that likes that. But you're right. You have to move away from that to more characterization, to more relatable. And then if you can find that, I mean, you can have. That's why I always think Superman is got to be really tough. You've got to give him human problems to make him understandable, because superpowers only go so far for so long. Right. I think that can't always be. It can't be the main. You can't fill all the pages or the screen.
The crutch only works for so long.
Right. Yep. And so. You've gotta have. That's why having way overpowered heroes or villains, it just makes it really tough. It's got to be
Marvel. They can only use it for a short time. And,
Captain Marvel, right? Yeah,
Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
Only use it for a short time. She
had to go. They made her fly off. In the movies off the planet, but it's tough. So you have to give them either the problems need to be on par with their powers. Right. Or they have to have some sort of relatable problem, or they don't have powers to punch somebody into the space. They've got to have weaknesses, and which I think that might be the timelessness of Batman and Tony Stark. He had real human problems. And
so with the power of but not the relatability of even between Batman and Superman being they don't kill the people, like that ability to hold back.
Yes.
Did that create more problems? But was that morally superior? And what's more relatable? There's because there's a middle line between that.
There is. In fact, Calculus touches on this. A great way to launch into that discussion. He says, if he went after, talking about, I guess, Batman here, if he went after who killed his family, he's just kind of the Punisher. Yeah, that's true. What you have here is a little bit deeper level of relatability in terms of Superman could just completely wipe out any human that offended the sense of justice, right? Any criminal could just be squashed. But the fact that he steps back and lets the justice system work. And Batman goes a little further, obviously, than Superman does, but does not kill. How easier would it be? I mean, the Punisher would just be face-palming, being around Batman all day, because he'd be like, just kill the Joker.
Bolos. What do Bolos do?
What are you doing? Wait, just kill these guys. You never have to face them again.
Right. Yeah.
So,
put the utility belt away and just take the guy out.
Just take the guy out, right? And so what you get there is this sense of what elevates the character again, which is virtue and discipline. We keep coming back to that, Rob, that pulp ideal that came along, like you said, I guess it was Depression and pre-Depression as well. This idea of the perfectible human being right after the Industrial Revolution, this idea that human beings could ascend through self-discipline, enough education, and that there was an aspiration to be the best you could be, which even led into all the way through the 20th century, even used in military advertisements all the way up, I guess, through 2000. One of the Army taglines is to be the best you can be, and so on and so forth.
That's not even new. That's right. Ancient. That's Stoicism.
Yes. Yes, the idea, the perfectibility,
Yeah.
not in the negative connotation of that,
Right,
where
right.
you're contrasting
But
the spiritual
mastery
side,
of self.
the mastery of
Yeah.
the self. And it's a good time to bring this up as well. If you look closely at the icon of St. George and the Dragon,
Yeah.
I want people to take a look at that. Everybody says, yeah, St. George, is St. George slaying the dragon? St. George is not slaying the dragon. St. George is holding the spear to the dragon, keeping the dragon subdued at his feet. The deeper meaning to the icon is quite simply the mastery of the dark side of ourselves.
Yeah.
Right. So again, if you want to go a little bit deeper into Batman and into Daredevil, even though he's superpowered, but if you go into Batman deeper, the idea of self-discipline and force of will are really the spine of the character. I don't want to go on too long with it. Rory, you want to comment on some of this?
Man, I just want to go down that moral philosophical road.
Yeah, man.
Especially because,
yeah.
I mean, how fortuitous that I'm taking a class called Medieval Moral Dilemmas.
There you go. Go for it.
And I have to read, St. Thomas Aquinas is fantastic, but reading On Evil by Thomas Aquinas.
Sweet.
Which is, what is evil? The metaphysics of evil.
Right.
And evil being the privation of the good. So good exists.
Right.
Evil is good, but lacking something. So
yeah.
nobody does something that says, I know this is going to be evil for me, so I want to do it.
Right.
Right. People sin, people do things thinking, oh, this is going to be a good, but it's missing something. They haven't gone the full breadth of it. Who else does this affect? How does this affect me?
Yes.
So, I mean, translating that into like a comic is so heavy, it's hard to do. So it's broken up into different characters, different themes, different archetypes.
Right.
And then you have to pull it together.
Yes.
And that's even that is heavy to do in a long period of time. So
I think you touched on it very well, though, when you mentioned Superman and Superman's self-control is a perfect embodiment of the reservation, holding back, knowing when not to take action.
Justice is justice.
Right.
But how far do you go?
How far do you go? I mean, again, Batman, how far he used, in the early incarnations, things were much more broad brushed in terms of.
He had a gun.
He had a gun. Oh my gosh. Oh,
Yeah.
Everybody freaks out. He had a gun. But, then when he started just being more like no guns and.
Bolos were a terrible idea, though. Bolos never work.
No, bolos never work, do they? But punching and kicking always works with Batman.
Always works, yeah.
And stringing the guys up right in front of Gotham's police station.
Yeah. String them up.
Yeah, just hang them there and wait with a little sign on them.
From your friendly neighborhood Batman.
Yeah, that's right. So, Scott, what about talk about a few more of your favorite non-power? Now, we haven't talked about the ladies yet, so we can bring up Black Widow.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about Black Widow. What do you think?
What are your feelings on Scarlett Johansson?
That's a whole nother show there.
Yeah. Jennifer Connelly
with his spouse, ladies and gentlemen.
So
get Cassie on her. Get Cassie
in the female realm. Honestly, I didn't read a lot of the female heroes, but Black Widow. I in the movie world, I really liked her character.
Okay,
I wasn't crazy about the movie. I didn't hate it. It was just kind of it's a movie. It was fun. Really liked her character partially because she was an Avenger. She wasn't like Girl Avenger or she was an Avenger
there.
And she was awesome and got along. She and Hawkeye were pals and gave each other a hard time the whole time. And there was never a
Cap could go back and forth.
Yeah. And especially
the
in Civil War. Civil War is one of the best. Winter Soldier. Winter Soldier is fantastic.
and they were just pals, kicking butt together, yucking it up while they're kicking butt too, which was hilariously awesome. And she was just fantastic. She's just a great character. So she obviously she comes with her baggage, and they slowly reveal that through the movies, and the comic books kind of did that. Like everybody has their incarnations. They always change depending on who the bad guys are, if it's the Soviets or whatever. So she has changed as well. But yeah, she is really skilled, dedicated, and has something special about her, which while you guys were chatting too, it occurred to me, Wasp and Ant-Man too. They can't just give those suits to anybody. They've got to, which as I mentioned before, a lot of bad things happen when the wrong people get these suits or powers or serums or whatever. That's always the theme for when bad things happen, because the wrong person has that power. So those guys get those suits. Black Widow could always have been a villain, and she could used her skill set for bad. Barbara Gordon, right? She's another one, street level fighter, same thing. She's got again, I know tons about her. Mostly I know more about her from Lego Batman than the comic books.
Lego Batman,
which might be the best Batman movie ever. I really, if I had to pick, if I had to, Lego Batman, one of the best movies ever too. Barbara, she's got her baggage for dad, and how to fight crime, and so. Again, I think it really all boils down to the base of that character, and then how do you like Punisher? Which one do we as a reader kind of like? Do we see that? Yeah, just end the bad guy, snuff him out, he's gone, or make the hard decision like Batman and let you're part of the justice, and let I don't know. I let them get their punishment in another way.
They're just desserts.
But that's good storytelling, because it leaves you. You can sit there and you can say, I see Punisher's point of view. End it. I see Batman's point of view, and you can't just say definitively yes. And so you can see the reasons behind like the anger and anguish of Punisher, and you can. As it's again good storytelling, you can see, wow, okay, I get it why he's doing that, and Batman, he's made that decision, and that's tough, and he sticks to it. And as a reader, the writer should know the reader is starting to expect a few things. So if you can play to what the reader expects, you can build anticipation, because the reader's going to know, oh, this situation is going to suck for Batman, and here it comes. Like even he's not ruining it, but he's. Or the villain is going to exploit that. So it makes for
good storytelling.
Yeah.
Calculus asks, would the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles be classified as
superhuman?
Yeah,
but not human.
Super anthropomorphized
heroes. Yes,
they have. I would say they do have superpowers in the sense that they've been affected by the ooze. So.
That's a weird one, because you're not. You're like they're more exceptional. So if they were just really smart turtles, would they be? There'd be street level turtles. But now they've transcended
tiny little turtles that couldn't hold a pencil. They couldn't shoot an ass.
They're no longer turtles.
Horrible situation.
They're like.
Got turtles that know calculus but can't hold a pencil.
Wait a second.
We're so smart, we can't do anything with it.
No one believes us.
Yeah, that's clever. That was a clever idea, just to anthropomorphize, something that's completely the opposite of what you would consider a tough fighting creature, a turtle. I mean, how funny is that?
Yeah.
Right?
But they're just ripped.
Yeah. Part of the reason it works is because of the humorous satire and irony of that. And of course their master, right? I mean, a rat.
How many other animals have caught on to that? It's just...
movie, the first Ninja Turtles movie, I got that on a VHS.
Oh yeah,
for my birthday when I was younger,
Oh, yeah.
and I watched that. My mom didn't like it because Raphael in the opening, he says he loses his sigh, and April O'Neil gets it, and he says, "Damn!" And my mom didn't like that Raphael yelled "damn." But I was able to get past that. Mom.
So you were up there with like the physical tracking dial.
I turned the volume down on the TV.
On the TV.
Turn it back up. Oh yeah. Ninja Turtles, man, and Shredder at the end. Oh, that's such a good movie. It's so good.
Yes.
Yep.
Splinter. Let's see. Calculus says, "I tried catching you with semantics."
Yeah.
We'll have to try another time.
Try harder.
Try again.
Ninja Turtles.
So,
good.
what do you guys think about more of these characters? We haven't mentioned Dick Grayson, for example, who becomes Nightwing. Again, no superpowers, and yet, is he emulating Batman? Is he trying to be a different Batman? Is he trying to impress Batman? What is the motivation of these non-humans? We've explored it with Bruce and Tony, but we get into the more supporting characters. What is Dick Grayson's motivation? Rob, I'm going to let you take a stab at this first.
His is very similar to Batman's. It's to avenge his parents' death.
Okay.
Because they were killed. The original story has they were killed. They were because they knew too much. If I remember correctly, I haven't ever read. All I've read is the stories that talk about it, but not the actual story where it happened. But I believe in one instance, it's actually the Joker that kills his parents, and he joins with Batman to avenge his parents. And throughout the story, it's Robin or Dick Grayson learning that revenge is not the answer.
Right.
Getting justice is the answer, and bringing them to justice. Going out and killing them really doesn't solve anything. It's not going to bring your parents back. None of that. Yeah. So that's that. There's that whole bit about it. That's where he comes from. So he's got some of the same motivation that Batman has, and that's what Batman sees in Dick Grayson, and why he takes him on as his partner, even though he's a very young man. He's got that drive in him too, and Batman, of course, is pushing that in the proper direction. That, which is why later on, when they turn Dick Grayson against Bruce Wayne, that really didn't work for me, because my Dick Grayson is different from the present day Dick Grayson, and he doesn't have the same motivation the old one did. So that Dick Grayson would never have done that.
Correct.
Oh, okay, Siri, whatever you say.
Yes, Dick Grayson.
She just looked up Dick Grayson.
Oh, wow, awesome.
Wow.
I think you brought up a really good point in terms of the idea of a knight training a page, which is the template for what we see, is very clear to me. But I think to the successive generations who aren't as familiar with knighthood and chivalry and all that, they don't see it as much like that. But in essence, what Bruce sees in Dick Grayson is himself, and where Bruce didn't have as focused a mentor, he didn't want to see Dick Grayson go down the wrong path. So there was this responsibility to take this young man who could have chosen revenge or let his anger consume him and make him do terrible things, and forge that grief into something positive. It's interesting, too, to see that Bruce Wayne was trained by, depending on the stories you want to follow, was trained by the League of Shadows. And, those guys are brutal assassins. So, he had to bring it from within himself to hold back and not become an assassin himself, right? Yeah. So he does everything up and to the point of that, which I always found fascinating. They explore it a little bit with Terminator 2, when the Terminator is requested to stop all the killing, and so he just starts maiming everybody in the legs and in the, you know. And so you got that almost to me was a wink and a nod to Batman, right? Where it's like, okay, I won't kill him, but basically it'll be crippled.
But they're not going to be the same when I'm through with them.
When I'm doing them, right? And I always thought that was interesting that that's part of what instilled fear into the criminals in Batman's world was the fact it wasn't the suit. People get misled that it was just the suit. The suit and the theatrics were part of it, but it was primarily the fact that, oh, this guy doesn't kill you, but he's going to make you wish you were dead.
Yeah.
Right? Because he knows how to inflict pain and pressure points and all of that. And, you know, dangling you by your ankles from a skyscraper and all this other stuff. So that was part of it, was the intimidation of that.
Scott, you ever get OC'd?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Why are you asking?
Just the pain.
Oh, pain. Yes.
OC'd and baton.
Pepper spray and getting clubbed. And
it's not fun.
We got a little.
I like how Nightwing is
handled, but that's just my opinion. I think he must be addressing the Titans show. That's a newer incarnation. If you are Calculus, let us know in terms of Nightwing. Let's see, isn't that what Shadowhawk did? Spine stabbing. Yes, that is what he did. Yeah, some of the later incarnations of Nightwing have him as more bitter and resentful to Bruce. And again, I think that's post-millennial, dark, cynical stuff. I think, come on, guys, you know, that's not what heroes are. Heroes can't all be dark, cynical, you know, anti-heroes who, you know, shake their fist at the idea of good and evil and justice and all that. Because we have to have some who do have a moral code. Now, you know, if you want to go down the anti-hero route, and you want to go Punisher, you know, that's a different kind of storytelling. But we're not really talking about them. We're talking about heroes. And arguably, to me, in fact, Punisher is not a hero.
No,
not
I
in
would
any
agree with
respect.
that.
What do you think, Scott? Any view Punisher, hero, not hero?
No, he doesn't resonate with me. That style of character has never been my thing. So I didn't read much, you know, follow him, and didn't like any of his real storylines. So no, you could say he does take out bad guys, but he also just kind of indiscriminate in what he does. So
does he become the bad guy that he's trying to execute? Again, Daredevil always really points out that the line that Daredevil is walking is, how far do I go before I become like those?
Yeah.
You know, that I become the monster, so to speak. And I think that's what helps in the DC world. That's what helps Batman stay on track. And also, the more Batman is exposed to Clark Kent and Superman, the more he remembers where that moral compass should be.
Yeah.
and again, my ignorance with Punisher, does he ever have a reckoning? I mean, how often in his storyline is he reset? I mean, because I feel like that's his arc a lot, right? Like he's getting things getting worse and worse, and it's kind of spiraling, his actions plus their actions, and it spirals out of control.
Yeah.
And it has to be a stronger response to the stronger response, right? And that's again another storyline trope, good or bad, that very often it just, because it keeps piling on, and then you start to lose yourself. So that's kind of a theme for him. So does he get reset? I don't mean like a start over, but I mean, does someone come in, or does something happen to where he has to
re-examine his motivation, so on. There's been some reflection in the character at times. It's usually when he is having an adventure with another character, primarily Daredevil, or one of the more morally focused characters. One of the funniest is watching him have an adventure with Spider-Man, which is hysterical. That's like two complete opposites working together. Calculus says Punisher is more of an anti-villain. He does some like good things for selfish reasons. He's definitely the code he has is a completely different code from many of what we would consider the heroic code of, the absolutist idea of justice and letting the law and order work. And if law and order doesn't work, that still doesn't give you the excuse to take the law into your own hands. It just means you've got to work harder to catch the bad guys, fix the problems in the legal system, and bring the bad guys to a corrected legal system, which is, again, why I think Daredevil's an interesting character, being an attorney. And knowing the law, you certainly would have an advantage being a vigilante. You could know what you could and couldn't do in many cases. So it'd be interesting.
Little tidbit here that I just looked up, IMDb, and I verified it with Google image search. Head thug in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. Yeah. Connection to Iron Man. Sam Rockwell.
Nice.
Yeah. Justin Hammer and Iron Man 2. Yeah. Wow. And then he's in a billion other things. Sam Rockwell is a great actor. Yeah. There you go.
Wow.
And Corey Feldman was Donatello's voice in the movie. I didn't know that.
Really? Is that right?
There we go.
I did not know that.
Man.
I'm gonna have to watch that one again. I haven't watched that in like 30 years. Got to introduce it to my kids. My kids will ask, "Is this old?" Yeah, they ask that a lot with my movies.
Just download the riff tracks now.
It's not in black and white.
Right. My response is frequently there were different times.
Hyper Potato. I'm late. Street Level Heroes. Rob Davis Scimitar is a great one. Look at that. Shout out to Rob's Scimitar.
Yeah. Scimitar was the whole arc with her was she was supposed to eventually redeem herself. She was supposed to go down this really dark path, and eventually everyone around her that was supporting her would leave her because she got so dark.
Interesting.
That she had to come to some sort of reckoning. Now, I don't know exactly what RA had in mind for her, whether that would destroy her completely or whether she would actually turn around. But yeah, she is superpowered. She has empathy. She's an empath. She takes on other people's emotions and she channels that into what she does. So she would not be a part of this milieu that we're talking about here, where it's non-powered superheroes. She actually had a power.
Right. She is analogous to Black Widow in terms of her abilities, and then her arc of, because the Black Widow arc is very similar to the La Femme Nikita arc of, being trained as an assassin to do nefarious things, and then not being that at her core, she finds a way to get her humanity back after all the awful things that she's been asked to do. That's a common thread. Calculus says, speaking of TMNT movie actors, Kevin Nash. Anyone talk to us about Kevin Nash? Have to look that up for us, Scott.
I'm there right now.
Okay,
you got me. Kevin Nash.
Yeah,
Kevin Nash.
I have no idea who that is.
Wrestler.
Is there a scale of powers of
heroes? Yes, there are lots of scales. You'll find them all over the.
Yeah.
Who's the strongest? How many cars could Spider-Man?
Well, not just Hulk. So much that, but like who's vigilante, no power, who's tech-based or augmented, who transforms, mutation, supernatural, alien. Like, is there a hierarchy?
What is Doctor Strange?
What is Doctor Strange is superpowered.
Superpower?
Yeah, he's superpowered.
I would say augmented.
Yeah.
He's a sorcerer.
But
he became that.
Yeah. Like he
Well, he's like Tony Stark and Iron Man in the fact that he learns
it
something
supernatural.
He doesn't gain it.
But he wields it.
Right.
So
okay.
Which you could argue becomes a part of himself.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, you could.
If he lost the stone, he would still know all of that.
comic book extremists, Tony Stark is augmented superpower because he gets the ability to tap into like technology, like that, as broad as that word is.
Wow, yeah. Swamp Thing in the Green.
Yes,
he gets
he
When
gets
I was
object-
asked about Zatanna and Dr. Fate over at DC,
Ooh.
again, they wield magical powers or occult powers. So again, I think if we're talking in broad terms here, which we very often are before we go too deep down the rabbit hole, we would say that those qualify as superpowered individuals. Now, whether they acquired the powers, earned the powers, learned the powers, if they're wielding them and they're not technical, are they not then superpowered individuals? I mean, if Zatanna can, talk backwards and cast a spell, she's more than a human. She can do more than a human being can do. So
more than capability.
Yeah, so by definition. And again, Tony in the suit is superpowered. Tony as himself is just a very intelligent human being.
So super versus supra.
Yes. See, now
supra would mean beyond normal.
Yes.
Although supra would it intonate supernatural, like spiritual side.
Well, we have a lot of those too in terms of Constantine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's a regular human being, but he wields occult power through a skill set acquired by studying ancient tomes and spells and so on. So
that's how I kind of feel
doesn't
about
he have
Dr.
demon
Strange.
blood too, though? Doesn't Constantine have demon blood? I think that's part of his.
Is that a case?
I'm thinking so. I thought I read that somewhere that he actually has demon blood.
We'll have to do some. Let's see here. Hyper Potato says my favorite character is Sergeant Rock. He wouldn't fall in the superheroes category, but he is powerless. Just the ideal soldier, not a super soldier. That's a good observation, Sergeant Rock. People forget about Sergeant Rock being non-powered, and yet again, look at the common thread we're finding tonight with non-powered heroes, and that is force of will and discipline.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All of them carry that. I think a lot of what we're discovering too is beyond just the entertainment factor. Early mythology, and I would consider comic books to be, 20th century mythology.
Yeah,
the early mythology was didactic in terms of being a way to teach young people about life, just like the Grimm's fairy tales were cautionary tales. I had to warn children about, staying away from strangers and going up to a house that looks like candy and all of that stuff. So
what's wrong with that?
Yeah, what's wrong with that? Point being, what's going to happen? Some witch is going to try to fatten me up and eat me later.
Fairy tales.
Whatever.
Too late, witch. I'm already fat.
But so, the point being, though, that these were didactic myths. They were teaching myths. So again, focusing on young men, for example, the idea of the perfectible man, the idea of Doc Savage, of Zorro, of Batman, the idea of I'm going to study hard, I'm going to work hard, I'm going to bring myself and my mind and my body to their peak level and then use it for good. Again, it's like, hey, we could use a lot of that in school today, right? I mean, not just to make yourself rich, not for reasons of selfishness, but for the good of everyone else, right? So become Doc Savage and be a crime fighter, right?
I just had another one come to me.
What's
Phantom.
that?
The
Yes.
Phantom.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
very good.
Perfect example of that.
Yes. So
21 generations of fighting evil or crime.
Fighting
So-
But the purple.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about the costume, but the idea was, again, along the lines of Doc Savage. The idea of self-perfection to their peak in order to benefit mankind.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, that's a classic ideal. That's kind of the idea of classical education in a way, was to do the same thing. I'm going to become the best version of myself in order to help others, not only enrich myself, but to help others as well. That was part of being a hero. Again, as we enter the late 20th century and then post-millennial, that seems to have sort of, dissipated a bit. Certainly with the X-Men, I don't know if any of you guys have even tried to read current X-Men continuity. It's just insane. Some of the characterizations of these, they're almost arrogant super beings looking down on humans, you know. And it's always about some radical human trying to exterminate them. And again, that was the case in the mid 20th century as well. But the elevated
I was going to say, wasn't that the point of the bad guys?
It was. However, and notice the similarity here with Batman versus the Punisher. The X-Men always fought back against the villains, but A, not to kill and destroy them, and B, they had a forgiving nature in terms of they don't understand us, they're afraid of us, so we're going to do the best we can to protect them, even though they hate us. Right?
Yeah.
So the virtue elevation of the characters were, despite the fact that you mock us, spit on us, throw things at us, try to outlaw us, try to kill us, right? We're going to overcome you with mercy, peace, justice. We may fight, but we're not going to kill, and we're not going to try to exterminate human beings as a retaliation, which they could have done. And in the early days, Magneto was part of a group, and Rob knows what the group was called. I bet you guys don't even remember. Rob, you remember what the group that Magneto was a member of was called? I wonder if
League of it's the League of Evil Mutants. It was Evil Mutants.
It's close.
Was the name of it.
Brotherhood of Evil Mutants.
Brotherhood. Yes. Yeah.
So the idea, they actually came out and said it in those days because it was the 20th century, so you could say these things. It was the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, right? Because the fact, what made them evil was they didn't tolerate humanity. Humanity want to kill them? Okay, we'll kill you back. Right?
We'll kill you back.
That's not heroic.
You're going to wake up dead.
Heroic. So, I mean, what the heck, right? So, again, the X-Men were elevated in those days. They were more like Superman in terms of we could crush all humanity if we chose to, but we choose to be better than that. We're going to protect them. We're going to educate them about us. We're going to be good. So you had Professor Xavier, and his approach was that. And then, of course, Magneto's approach was, you know, if they don't like us, we'll just kill them and be done with it. Which always made me laugh because in many incarnations, Magneto was, you know, an escapee from a Nazi prison camp, right? So it's like, hang on, Captain Hypocrisy. What are you doing here? What? Huh? What? Let's see. Calculus agrees with us here. Calculus says the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Correct. Hyper Potato, you kill me, I kill you. That's it. So yeah, not exactly the heroic code there for the original X-Men, but you get the sense with some of the post-millennial writers that you know, and I mean it's a creative thing, so you write what you want to write, but it certainly leaves the realm of the self-disciplined, virtuous heroes, right? Certainly led by Charles, who would always be, you know, apt to bring the temperature down. Let's
pump the brakes.
You know, guys,
take a breather. My goodness,
come on,
chill, man.
Chill out, dude.
Dean,
that was also. I just want to throw this last one in because martial arts was a big thing back in the late 20th century, specifically in the 70s, and there was. There was a movie called Billy Jack in that time period. Rob is very familiar with this.
Man, very popular.
Very popular. The idea of, hi, Brent. Welcome, my friend. Good to see you, buddy.
Yeah.
Hi, Brent probably remembers Billy Jack, too. But he's not that old. He's not that old. The idea was that we had, I believe this character was a former Green Beret who was martial arts trained. In the storyline, he was
Native American,
Vietnam vet, right?
Yeah, Native American Vietnam vet. Yeah,
right. And the idea was that he fought against the prejudice and the mistreatment of the outsider with his martial arts, right? but he defended the innocent. The whole point of it was he was there not to start the fight, but to defend the innocent.
But
right?
to damn well finish it.
Yeah, isn't it darn well finish it?
Yep.
Exactly. So again, that's the way the X-Men were as well. They understood, the cool-headed ones anyway, they understood why humanity often was at odds with them and wanted to take them out. But they also understood the danger of doing, an eye for an eye in response to that. Calculus says there are always parallels because Professor X is more of the MLK approach and Magneto is the Malcolm X approach. Absolutely right.
Yeah.
That was the commentary being spoken of. Brent, since you're fresh into the room, into the discussion, I'd love to get your take on your favorite non-powered superhero. And by non-powered, I should say hero, we have an individual who is limited by human abilities of mind and body, but who has comic books written about them. And as a kid, maybe, who were you inspired by who didn't really have superpowers, but they followed the pulp idea of the early 20th century of the perfectible human. In other words, they were going to study the hardest and train themselves the best and use those skills to benefit mankind.
You have 2 minutes. Go. So I began my presentation with...
I prepared a 2-minute PowerPoint.
We begin with John Medics.
Oh, I miss John.
Where's
No,
John?
no.
Come on, John.
Not even here.
No.
Is Captain America, is he off the list? Because he
Off the list because
No soup.
No, yeah, but he doesn't have any powers. The super soldier serum apparently boosted him to the peak of
Give him
human
muscles, that's it.
perfection, right? Not in the movies, but in the comics.
In the comic books, I believe you're
So he
correct.
was still
Yes.
technically human.
Okay.
But if
Yeah.
he's off the list, then
Augmented.
I'll,
Augmented.
Think
Yeah,
more.
he would be augmented. Yeah.
Think
You're
more
thinking
Bat
more pulp.
Family. Think more Bat Family. Think more Iron Man.
Rocketeer.
Think more,
Okay.
in those respects, or whoever you'd like.
well,
Okay. Why not go down the trail of Captain America then?
Yeah, I want to hear
That's
what
where
your
you're
thoughts
headed.
are.
Go
on
ahead.
Cap.
Go ahead and go where you were going to
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
with
Go
that.
where you were going to go.
Because to prove us wrong.
okay.
Absolutely.
What are you trying
What
to
a
prove?
setup.
So I can prove you wrong.
No, we were discussing within the parameters of individuals who use the peak of their human abilities to benefit mankind as a hero.
Okay. Here's my Captain America screed.
Go for it.
Okay.
Awesome, because he's the guy who he walks into a room of he can't shoot any beams. He doesn't have super strength, but when he walks into a room, the supervillains tremble.
Ooh.
Okay? He can throw a shield. Now that sounds goofy, but it goes everywhere he wants. And I love the stories that actually explore the fact that it's not that he has a superhuman mind that can figure out angles at the speed of light or something like that. It's because he practiced. He practiced so much, the shield is now a part of his body practically. It's a genuine weapon, whereas everyone else would be like, well, that's the thing you hide behind. Not Captain America. He uses it to great effect because he's used it so much. And he's always training, and he's never thinking, I really wish some freaking radioactive American would bite me so that I could get super American powers. And, like everyone else. He's just like, this is what I've got. I'm going to go and do my thing. And I love the stories that really, can kind of drill down on the fact that he is American. This doesn't mean that he fights for the American government. He fights for the ideal of America. Right. And people can still say that without smirking right now. Right now, it is kind of unfashionable to be patriotic. Okay, right. I get that. There is such a thing as blind allegiance. This is bad.
Absolutely.
America was never about blind allegiance. He stepped away from being Captain America and became the Nomad in the 70s because he was like, I can't get behind what America's about right now.
Right.
That was huge. He also, in the late 80s, when the government tried to basically make him re-enlist, he walked away from it again and became the captain. You remember that?
Yep.
And it was about the fact that this is a guy who is willing to leave everything behind. They captured it really well at the end of Civil War. He's willing to sacrifice for what he believes. The rest of us are willing to compromise and then say that we actually acted rightly so that everyone could be happy. Captain America knows that line and won't cross it. And that's why, that's kind of the reason why, I love the scene in the Avengers movie where they're all standing in a circle. And I've been over this in this group because it's one of my favorite scenes of the last 20 years. And all the Chitauri are landing on the buildings and screaming, "Ah!" And then the Hulk screams back, "Ah!" And I'm like, yeah, finally someone screamed back. But after that, they all turn and look at Cap because he's the guy. He doesn't have crazy muscles. He doesn't have repulsor rays. He doesn't have anything crazy. He just has it. And everyone's like, okay, just tell us what to do and we'll go do it.
Yeah.
And that's Captain America. I love that dude.
I'm with you on this because he's one of my favorite characters as well. So it's hard.
I was
hard for
hoping
me not
that's
to.
where you go with that. I'm very glad because that's that does essentially put him in that same realm of non-superpowered. When you look at it in that relationship, I figured that's where you were headed, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I understand.
Very good.
You're basically saying the super soldier serum was to turn him into a decathlete.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I would say augmented.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So he can run pretty fast. He can't run like the Flash,
No.
He will never race.
He doesn't have super speed. He just has on your left.
Yeah, exactly. Which was a lot of fun. But the movies actually played that up a little bit. Like where he's jumping in the air like 2 stories high.
Yeah, it's a little outside. Yeah, the comic book character is less powered than the one in the movies is. To be honest, he is more like a decathlete. He's the epitome of human output.
Capability.
What a normal human. Yeah, he's the perfect human being. He's not a perfect superpowered human being. He's the perfect human being. So I get it. I get it.
What is Captain America's flaw? I know Barb has mentioned before when we talk about Cap that Barb thinks sometimes that he has all the answers. There's a level of arrogance in terms of he has the answers and he doesn't question. But I think that's more perception because, as you mentioned, Brent, he does question and at times questions his own government to the point of stepping away from the mantle for a while until things right themselves and then coming back. So he is a thoughtful individual as well.
Yeah, and that is a valid point. There is such a thing as getting high on your own righteousness, basically, to the point where that's why him and Tony always had such a great dynamic, because Tony's the one saying, why don't we just do it the easy way? And the rest of the world is actually saying, I can't really think of a good reason why not to. And then Cap is like, because it's the wrong thing. And you're like, okay, every once in a while you want him to dial it down just a little bit. But at the same time, he's also the guy who you never want him to dial it down, because then he wouldn't be Captain America anymore.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
He's the guy, like you said, if your back's against the wall and the odds are against you and you're going to turn to Cap and go, what do we do? You're not going to turn to anybody else in the Avengers Cap for the what do we do now question. That says a lot.
Yeah, my favorite scene with him is the one where they're in the elevator and everybody gets on board, and he reads the room, and he goes, "Okay,
Immediately.
these guys are here to get me."
Yeah.
And he goes, "Anybody want to get off?"
Yeah.
Before we get started, does anybody want to get off?
Yeah.
Because bring it
Class
is
improvement.
essentially what he's saying. Bring it, because
Yeah.
it's not going to end well for you, and it doesn't. Although it comes close a couple of times, but he always pulls it off. That's where that arrogance comes in, because he always does it.
He can
He
do it.
always pushes it. He pushes as far as he can until he gets where he's going, which is why at the end of the Avengers movie, where at the end where everybody turns into smoke. I'm losing the name of the movie.
Endgame.
But anyway,
The one before it is
one before
Infinity War.
Endgame.
Infinity Wars.
Infinity Gauntlet.
No,
Infinity War.
Infinity War. Thank
Yeah,
you. That one, where he's completely defeated.
Yeah.
He is defeated at that point. So that's
Yes.
the only time you ever see that with him.
Yes.
Like and subscribe, kids.
Like and subscribe,
was-
kids.
That was a great ending to that movie, in part because you could see what being defeated did for all of them. Remember when Peter Parker turned to smoke to ash in Tony's arms, and he just kind of just watch him collapse on himself. It's such a powerful scene. And Cap too, when he's like, "We were winning, we were the good guys, and this time righteousness abandoned us." It was
Powerful.
Extremely powerful
Powerful.
ending to a movie.
It was. Brent, I wanted you to give us your take, because we all kind of discussed a little bit earlier the relatability of incredibly fantastic powered superheroes versus the ones who are more street level. And I've noticed, just being at cons, that there are fans who come up to ask, for Hulk or Thor, and they tend to be younger. This is generalizing, but they tend to be younger. And then you get to the teenagers and older, and you get more into the Cap and Batman. And I was wondering, do you find that relatability is connected a little bit with age to how much superpower the hero has? The more superpowered, the more juvenile the fan, not in a pejorative way, but just observing things.
Okay, now you're talking to my inner geek, which I have ruminated on this a lot. And you know what I think?
Talk to me.
I think kids love the Hulk and Thor and Superman. In their teenage years, they love Batman because he's cool. He's the guy who stands up next to Superman and unloads on him, and Superman can't do anything but take it.
Yeah.
Then, here's my thought. I think they circle back around. Because I'll be honest, Batman's cool, but his main shtick is rage. And you know what's funny about rage? It's boring. It's just the same thing. I'm out to destroy the criminal online. Your parents, okay, man, therapy is an option for you. Look into it. But then there's Superman, a guy who has unlimited power and yet somehow still manages to not be a jackass about it.
Yeah.
How does he do that? I mean, I'm talking about a fictional character, and I'm still wondering, why does Superman not kill us all? Why is he not, I love that people were just like, the Batman versus Superman movie, oh, Batman totally had him. I'm like, okay, this is how Superman would destroy Batman. Step 1, he would drop him in the sun, and step 2, he'd go out for frozen yogurt. That would be Except he won't do it.
Right.
Why won't he do it? And suddenly my adult sensibility is going, that is what it means to be an adult.
Yes.
You can't be enraged all the time. Our culture needs a little update on this. You can't be outraged all the time.
Boy,
What? Brent? I can't even. You.
It's true. You can find me at timeright.com.
Cliff.
It's off.
Hashtag cancel Brent Larson.
I'm sorry. Yes, cancel me. I'm at Scott Wakefield. So, do you know what I mean? There's just a very real sense of why does Superman fight for what's good? And the more you wrestle with that question, I think literally the more it helps you to ask, why should I fight for what's good?
Yeah.
The prevailing thought right now is I should fight because I feel like fighting.
Mm-hmm.
And that gets really old. And
Yep.
eventually you realize I'm just basically being whiny all the time.
Yep.
And I only fight for myself. And that's not a terribly compelling cause, but it's really hard for me to stop. But then you have the other people who are genuinely trying to do good. That's why writers who write about dark stuff all the time, I'm like, you got dropped on your head as a child and you're trying to cash in on it. And that's not really cool, okay? But the idea that there are people in this world who are actually doing good because they know it's the right thing to do, they're not getting a ton of money for it, they just feel compelled to do it. That's actually what makes me think, I really want to know why. And I want to maybe capture that somehow and tell the rest of the world. I mean, I believe in God, I think largely because I've seen good and evil, and I've wrestled with the idea that can we really be good on our own? I mean, these are questions that dark people who write about dark stuff all the time,
Yeah.
it's like they don't want to think about it, so they just go dark. You know, the kids love it, and I don't know, maybe people buy me more drinks as a result. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Brent, you touching on something that we mentioned a little bit earlier as well. I made the comment that early mythology was didactic and was there to help young people understand the differences and to help guide them along a path with a moral compass. And that's really a lot of what guided superheroes early on. Then they got too corny to some people, and they got too circus performer. And then, so we brought this reality in with the 60s and blended it with the fantasy of superpowers. And then again, addressed the fact, but Superman remains one of those enigmas that I think you've touched on, in that if you had all that power and you still chose to do good, it seems to me your greatest superpower is restraint.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not just losing your patience going, these darn humans, I'm done with it. I'm just going to wipe the whole place out. And then, whatever. They're going to screw this whole world up. This is ridiculous, And he doesn't do that. He has patience and compassion and restraint. I wish the writing of a movie that pitted someone like Batman against Superman was a little deeper, because we could have had those conversations between either peripheral characters or the characters themselves, at least those issues addressed in the screenplay, and actually educate the viewer in the fact that, guys, getting mad and taking it out on bad guys is one thing, but you have to ask yourself what's better for society in the long run. Is what Superman is doing in terms of restraint. Let's have some restraint.
We'd have to truncate it all.
Yeah. Yeah. So point being that, the question is, man, what we could do a whole show on just why does Superman, and why is he so hard to write now? And I guess it's just the times we're in are so cynical in many ways, that a lot of that cynicism has bled into the heroic storytelling. And they're all just navel gazing. That's what I call it. Everybody's navel gazing too much. It's like, dude, just do what you were put there to do. Save the innocent, defeat the bad guy, and don't take yourself too seriously. I mean, hey,
I'd love to see somebody really take Batman back to his detective roots.
Yeah, be a detective.
He doesn't be a freaking detective. And figure stuff out. And when need be, kick somebody's ass. That's fine.
Yeah, when need be.
But,
right.
Yeah, when need be, but not all the time.
Not all the time.
That's your whole reason, angry, just like Brent was talking about. You can't be angry all the time. There's not enough energy in the human body to keep anger up that long. The only person that works for is the Hulk. He gets when he gets angry, he gets stronger. That's you know
Yeah.
that's the juvenile in you. You know, you want to throw a tantrum and you want to, you know, we want to smash.
Right.
But you know, you want to do that, and I understand the that whole deal, especially. So I see why the Hulk appeals to people like that. But there's the Hulk written well. There's more to him than that.
Yes.
But that's the basic. That's the bottom line. Is that guy gets angry and he gets stronger and he gets stronger and you know that's what
Yeah.
he's all about.
Yeah.
But that, you know, we don't need that in Batman. Batman could be a damn good detective, but you need to know how to write good detective stories to do that. And I don't think anybody who's doing it now knows how to do that.
I think that's a great point. I would advise the writers of Batman to think of him more as Sherlock Holmes and a ninja
Yes.
The
combined.
animated series did a pretty good job for being a kids cartoon.
Yes, I agree.
Actually,
Having him
yes.
he wasn't always angry. He was in the Bat Cave and he was figuring stuff out, and
Yeah.
yeah, it was good.
Strategy and
Yeah.
you know,
Yep.
strategy
Strategy,
is one
Wow.
of his skill,
That's
you know,
an oldie.
yeah, it's
Good.
an oldie.
He just
That's-
wanted
that's-
to help people put food on their families.
You know, it's a skill set, man. It's a
Food
skill
fight.
set.
Food fight.
Food fight. And on that note, kids, we're coming to the end of the show again. I want to thank everybody who came to the Daytona Beach Comic Con. Brent was there. He saw it. We enjoyed hanging out and getting to see these people
Enjoyed.
in person.
Something that was happening simultaneously with the
Kept
show
the sea
was
warm.
the Kickstarter.
Yes,
For
and
the
it
horror.
was successful.
And-
We get-
It's very
Don't
successful.
forget-
It got all the way to 3,000 bucks.
Oh man!
I
Thank
wanna
you, everybody.
thank everybody that helped us get to that goal.
Brent,
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Hopefully, they'll be getting those things to you in the next 3-4 weeks as it all develops. I just keep watching your email or watching whatever you put your name on, and hopefully it'll be coming pretty soon. But thank you so much for helping us meet our goals.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
That's
Rob.
the bottom
A
line.
reminder:
Yes,
if
thank
you did back it, remember to check your inbox because you're going to get a Kickstarter
Yes.
question to respond to. A lot of people need to
Exactly.
be prompted multiple times, and Roland keeps his emails get angrier and angrier. Hey, just respond.
Hey, don't forget to hey,
Roland
guys,
smash.
You're gonna, Roland turns into the Hulk. He will show up at your front door. He will hand deliver your comics and smash.
Survey.
So yeah, check your inbox.
And speaking of anger management, he would be angry if we didn't say, as we close, and we always say, make mine Silverline. Good night, everybody.
Hi, my name is Sergio Cariello, and make mine Silverline.